right, welcome to another Warminster Scoop. Today we have our Planning Director, Mike Walsh. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here. So Mike, give us a little bit of your background.
I kind of have a unique pathway getting into local government. So I started out as summer help at Northampton Township, and when I graduated college, it was right around 2008 with the housing crisis. So I had jobs lined up with DEP, but fell through because the state didn't pass a budget that year, and Northampton was hiring full-time public work. So I applied to get the full-time position and got it. So I worked there for 7 years. And then while I was there, I got my master's degree and did an internship program with the manager and assistant manager there, working with various departments. And then from there, opportunity came up to become the assistant manager in New Britain Township, where I was there for 7 years and functioned as the interim manager for probably about 8 to 9 months on a total of 2 occasions combined. And then in 2023, I got a great opportunity here talking with John Ramey and Tom Scott to come here and join the team here at Warminster as the planning director. So I started here in November of 2023. Other things I bring with me, working on getting my certification in planning still to make sure I have that accreditation. But I'm also a member of Government Finance Officers Association, which I think is something that's valuable for everybody to be involved in, because ultimately we are responsible and custodians of taxpayer dollars.
We are the stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. That's correct, and it's great to have someone with your skill set here as our planning director. So as that position entails, why don't you give us a little background, because this is what these are all about. Give us a little background on the overview and of license and inspections, as we lovingly call L&I.
L&I.
So just give us a little bit of what the functions of L&I are, because you always hear people have their own interpretation of actually what it is and what it should do.
Yeah. So the way I like to describe L&I, some of the main things that we are responsible for is subdivision and land development projects. We work closely with the engineer, solicitor, township manager, and the board to custodian those processes through, which includes escrows, making sure the finances are good for those projects as we move through them. As everyone else knows, probably the main thing most people know us for is where you get building permits, zoning permits, different things like that. We handle all those certifications, inspections. We also do a lot of code enforcement, which is when it's not criminal, which is usually the police take care of all that. There are things called non-criminal investigations, which are violations of other ordinances within the township that fall within the jurisdiction of the license and inspection department. The other things we do is we also help with some the township's planning committees and boards, which is the Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board. And I always like to say, property maintenance and building codes and things like that. But people may only sometimes see the nuisance of having to get a permit and pay the fees and things like that. I always like to explain that, we've come a long way with building codes and things like that, and there's a reason we have fewer house fires and things like that in this area, because we've come so far with those things, and we enforce those codes and make sure people's structures and homes are built safely.
Right. I know. I used to hear that a lot years past. Why shouldn't I be able to do whatever I want? Well, your house may burn down because you don't have skill sets, maybe like for electrical or heating and things like that. So, and these ordinances are all here over the past, since probably in the 1900s. They've been modified over the time, but they're here to keep the residents and the property's values higher and make sure that everybody complies, and we're not just running roughshod over people's neighborhoods, and protecting all the residents. I know people do complain about the fact that they have to get a permit, but
other things I from my perspective, touching on the code and complaint stuff, I try to express to everyone too. Yes, we want to enforce the ordinance, but people have to realize the amount of responsibility that the township has. There's over 10,000 properties in Warminster Township. So, a lot of what we do relies on the public submitting complaints to us. Because, as it stands right now, essentially, we have building inspectors and they notice things while they're out, but we really have one employee dedicated to investigating the complaints that come in from residents and things like that. So one employee for over 10,000 properties is, stretched thin. So I always like to express, we do the best with what comes in, because to really enforce things fully, I don't think taxpayers would like us to go that route, because that would be 4 or 5, 6 employees probably to really, be as proactive as we want to. But since I've been here, the board has been great at supporting us increasing that effort, because when I started, we didn't have that employee. So getting that support from the township manager and the board was a big help to move in that direction.
Yeah, it always comes down to budget and what the township can afford. I mean, as again, because we are stewards of the taxpayers' money here, so we like to get the biggest bang for our buck, and we appreciate the hard work that you guys do, because it does protect the health, safety, and the welfare of the community. So you guys, you don't do it alone. Obviously, you have an outside firm that helps us with all these things. So why don't you talk about that a little bit as well?
Yeah, that's correct, Ken. The township uses a third-party company to staff L&I for the inspectors. Because otherwise this would be a pretty big task and a financial commitment by the township to hire the number of employees that we get for what we pay and pay Barry Set to do. But Barry Set was hired in 2023 as a result of a down year in permit revenues for 2 straight years. There was a lapse in that, so.
Significantly down.
Yes.
Yes, that was a while. That was when I first got here. The permits were almost non-existent, and all you heard about on the news, that was during the pandemic, or right around the pandemic is when we saw the permits drop off. Yet we kept hearing that everyone was doing all kinds of work in their homes. I believe that was what was going on.
I can say I was not here during those years,
Right.
but when I worked in New Britain, we did see an uptick in building permits and things like that, because many people, instead of going on vacation, were investing in communal spaces on their property, patios, things like that, where they could hang out with friends, and while we were dealing with social distancing. So lots of money that used to go into vacations started going into home improvement projects.
Yeah, and we saw the revenues here in Warminster drop significantly during that time, and then when you came in and we changed to Barry Set, I believe those revenues increased significantly.
Yes, you are correct. Actually, the transition to Barry Set took place probably about 11 months before I started. But Barry Set has been phenomenal so far. They supply us with 2 administrative assistants and permit clerks. We get 2 zoning officers and 2 BCO plan reviewers. We have 2 building inspectors that are on site all the time. We have a rental and amusement device inspector who helps us with those permits and things like that we have to deal with, because Warminster Township has over, just apartments alone, over 2,116, I believe, in total, that we're responsible for making sure that those renters have things like carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, the things that, the bare minimum things that they need to keep those where they live safe, and make sure that their landlords are providing those things for residents to maintain the safety.
So they have a total of 8 people that work out of their office, or out of the license and inspections office, correct? Including you, that would be 9, right?
I would be the
Actually
9th.
10, and there's one other.
And I would say the beauty of Barry Set, which is, like I said, the property maintenance side, we have the equivalent of 1 person, but they fill us with 2 or 3 inspectors, so we make sure if somebody's got to be somewhere else, the gaps get filled, and we always have somebody here when a call comes in, we get an email. We'll get into the new permitting software and stuff that we have, the new systems we have in place to handle complaints and things like that, that'll that have really helped streamline us and help us document the things that we're doing in L&I.
Yeah, and I know that was one of the issues that we tried to address as we move forward. Once we got the township back on solid financial footing, is like, okay, now let's start to enhance and improve the services we provide. And I know as much as people don't like enforcement of license and inspections, but the programs actually do help protect the community and keep the property values high. So, it all in all, it comes out to better quality of life for the residents.
Correct. And, going on that, we'd like to have strong enforcement action here. But as I always say to the residents, our main goal when we go through a violation process is always compliance with the ordinance. We don't want to get to the point where we fine people and do that, because that's costly work for us. I mean, our main goal at the end of the day is always compliance with the township
Right.
ordinance.
So we're not picking on anyone individually. We're not going at, we're not picking on people. We're just trying to keep people compliant with the local ordinances.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
that improves everybody's quality of life around that property. If it has to be, if the grass needs to be mowed or whatever else needs to happen, that actually improves. It actually improves the property values, I believe. If everyone's keeping their house up and they're in compliance with the license and inspection, the building codes, then it's a win-win.
yes, I believe that is the case.
All right, so I know we started and part of the streamlining and trying to make things more efficient, we started an online permitting system.
Correct.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, because that's definitely the residents might want to hear a little more about that.
So one of the things since I started, and it started before me with Tom and his staff before I got here, was really pushing to modernize how we do things over at L&I, to streamline things, make things much more paperless as we can, while also at the same time still realizing we do have some residents that's a trouble for. So as we went through in March of '24, we made the official transition to a software called OpenGov. It's an online permitting portal. So everyone can apply for building permits, zoning permits, rental licenses, amusement device license permits, and everything in between on there. And that is also the system in which we take complaints from our residents now, which really allows us to really track the records and have a record of every time a complaint comes in. Give the residents an option to say, I want feedback on how this investigation goes, or I don't. But we look into anything that gets submitted. Investigators go out, take photos, and we have an extensive process as we go through everything we have to on our end, the same way a police officer would have to do an investigation. We follow through with those things. And
So we're not just taking the, when a resident puts a complaint in, we're not, we go out and we look and to see if the complaint's valid, or if it's just a Hatfields-McCoy's fight.
correct.
Yeah.
So generally, I would say the first step is the admins review it for one of three things. Is it an L&I issue that we deal with, or does it need to go to another department? Probably first of all, I did them in reverse order, but first of all, we make sure it's in Warminster Township. We have gotten some
Well,
complaints.
that's a plus.
Where we make sure that whoever's contacting us is contacting the correct entity. So we review it for those things first, and then it will get passed on to an inspector, who again will go out to the property where the issue was, take photographs, and do an investigation, and then come back, read through the ordinances, see where if there's a violation that applies, and then we would go through the process of a door hanger or a nice letter just to kind of kick off the conversation. And then if nothing comes from that, we move on to a notice of violation, and then on to citations if necessary.
Okay, and you handle quite a few permit applications, and so how many? How many do you handle a year on average?
The beauty of OpenGov is it lets us track a lot of this information. So in general, L&I is handling anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 permit applications a year, along with 400 to 500 complaints per year that we receive through the OpenGov system, which all those permits and all those complaints generally lead to we conduct about 5,000 to 6,000 inspections or
Wow.
investigations per year,
So you guys are busy.
nonstop.
Yep, so that's OpenGov is the name of the online permitting portal. What else are you guys doing over there?
So the other aspects of OpenGov that have really opened things up, as you know, recently the board enacted that private sewer lateral ordinance. You recently enacted the private sewer lateral ordinance for WMA to enforce. We've really worked well with Dalton and Tim Hagee over there to integrate them into a residential UNO process and things like that to really help them jumpstart their program with that stuff to.
Yeah, and that's definitely, that program is being enacted across the entire state, and it really does protect the people that are buying the house, because it's underground, and we're going to have the WMA in on another scoop to explain really what that is, plus what they do. But that's, yeah, that's good. So, yeah, what else you got going on there, Mike?
Within that, like I said earlier, we also touched on, we have to have some respect for some residents that aren't necessarily technology advanced, I would say. So in L&I's lobby, we have a computer set up, two computers set up, monitors set up that mirror each other. So residents can come in and our staff can walk them through the online portal if they need to come and assist. We're always willing to help and reach out. You know, this is, you know, we're a year, 2 years, it's going to be 2 years in March next year. And I always like to say we appreciate any feedback and we are always looking to improve what we're doing over there. And, you know, we have adjusted our processes based on complaints and different things we receive from residents or realtors or different people applying for permits and really try to take those things to heart and adapt our system as we go.
Yeah, you're working with everyone, not against them. That's good news, because that's what we need from L&I. And I understand, I know this is, when I first got here, I know we talked about escrow accounts for builders and developers, and we could never figure out where the money was. And then we come to find that most of them, their escrow accounts were in arrears, which means they were empty. And you guys have been helping us out with that as well.
Yes, correct. So we've made a ton of progress on that. We've started to correct a lot of those accounts. We still have some that we're working on. Then it's still a fairly substantial sum of money, and we get that money back, we're reinvesting it into the general fund, which is helping with budgeting.
Which is where that money came out of originally, and was never being replenished by the developers, so that's another reason why we were in financial trouble. So, but you guys are helping us out with that.
Correct. And now that we've corrected a lot of the accounts, we've set up a system in place by which when an account becomes in violation of its professional service agreement, which governs the escrow, which is if the account falls below 50% and they are notified to within 15 days to re-up their account and they don't, every month I send an email to everyone in the township, the manager, every department, the engineer, solicitor, with a list of those projects that work should immediately cease on, so that we don't the township doesn't get in the situation it has been in the past. Not to say that there will never be accounts in arrears. I think by the nature of how we're required to handle those accounts, which is essentially Gilmore sends the township a bill, we pay the bill, and then we assess it to the account and then ask for that money back.
Right.
So there's always a trickle thing, but I just like to say we need to shut the faucet off when necessary.
Right.
So that's what we've put in place, and we do that monthly now.
And I'll tell you what, that really does help, because the general fund does pay for all our police and firemen, and, well, not so much the firemen, but the public works and all the staff here. So it's hard to manage all that, plus all our professional money, without having anything coming in from those escrows. Anything else you want to touch on, Mike, before we wrap it up?
No, just some other things I'd touch on to go with that is we just recently wrapped up on Monday our digitization of all of our property records, which is really going to help helping and communicating with other departments when they need information on properties, and right-to-know requests and things that people put in the township for information, which has helped us remove a substantial amount of filing cabinets from our office, which are officially gone.
Well, that's good news, because now nobody's going to stub their toe or bang their head
Nope.
on open drawers, right?
Yep, we are cleaning up and modernizing, and, the goal is that, not that we would never have a footprint, but now that L&I doesn't have all the need for those filing cabinets, our footprint can become smaller when needed in the future.
That's good. That'll help us when we get our new municipal building. We won't need such a huge space in it.
Yeah.
Kidding.
And I guess the other last thing I want to touch on, Ken, is that the township has been working on, with the blight committee and everything like that, we've started the process of handling properties that have been deemed blighted, which is issues with, L&I has had issues with getting a hold of property owners, or the property may be vacant. Typically, this happens when someone's elderly and their family lives out of state or something along those lines.
Right.
We've really started to institute a process to start handling those properties. And I'm bringing that up because I know that I've gotten contacted recently about a few of the properties. But the good thing is when I got contact about them, they're already on our list and we're already paying attention to.
You're already
So,
actively looking at them?
I just like to tell everybody that it's an expensive undertaking the township has to do, but they're willing to put money. We're doing one at a time, so it will take a little bit of time, but we just recently finished 231 Street Briar, and we're gonna be moving on to a couple other ones.
And I just wanted to add, we appreciate that, and I'm sure the residents around these properties appreciate that, but if anybody thinks that the township makes money on blighting a property and then having it either knocked down or sent to the redevelopment authority, the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority, and then we don't make any money when that place is sold. Usually after the fees, the legal costs, every other cost involved from the township, we lose money on those properties. But we have to continue that because we want the residents not to live around properties that have fallen into disrepair, and so. Well, Mike, I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and thanks again for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
Thank you. My pleasure. Well, we'll see you again on another scoop.